Ben had been a zookeeper for many years, and he was especially close to a newborn seal pup. One day, the baby seal started acting strangely, even appearing to cry, which worried Ben. He reported it to his supervisor, who decided to check the CCTV footage for answers. But what the footage showed led to something Ben never expected. He was fired on the spot. "What do you mean I'm fired?" Ben asked, confused. "I'm sorry, Ben. I had no choice," his boss replied after watching the footage. "You have until the end of the day to pack up and leave." Ben was stunned. All he wanted was to figure out why the baby seal was so upset, and now he was losing his job. Determined to understand, Ben sneaked into his boss's office to watch the footage himself. What he saw left him shocked, and he knew he had to stop it. But why did his boss fire him? What was in the footage? And what was happening to the baby seal? The local zoo was a social hub for many families. Everyone loved going there, but most of them only came for the seals. Every day around noon, the zookeepers would put on a little mealtime show for the visitors, showing off the seals' jumping skills and waving at the children in the front row. Ben was the showmaster. Having taught the seals almost all their tricks, they trusted Ben and knew he would never harm them. But one Wednesday morning, while getting ready for the show, Ben noticed something wasn't right with the youngest baby seal. It was acting distressed, and there were even real tears rolling down its little cheek. Not knowing what had caused this behavior, Ben quickly went over to his colleague Chloe, who had cared for the seals the day before. However, Chloe also had no idea. She even told him that the baby seal had been acting like that the previous day as well. Ben was baffled. Something must have happened on Tuesday when he wasn't working. Ben felt very responsible for the seal's well-being, so he wanted to get to the bottom of it. Whoever did something wrong that day would never confess on their own, so Ben thought of another way to find out the truth. He had to look at the CCTV footage. There was one minor hiccup, though. Zoo workers weren't usually allowed to review CCTV footage as they please. Ben went to his boss, hoping he would look at the footage himself. Ben's boss wasn't convinced at first, but after Ben described how important the seal's well-being was to the zoo, and how the zoo could lose a lot of profit if one of those seals upset the visitors, he agreed to watch the footage. Ben, however, wasn't allowed to stay in the room, so he went back to work. The rest of the day, Ben waited to hear back from his boss. The feeding show went great, and all the visitors cheered as Ben made the big seals clap their flippers and jump off a plank. But all Ben could think about was the sad little baby seal again. At the end of the day, Ben decided he had waited long enough. His boss must have checked the footage by now, so he walked up to his office and knocked on the door. When the door opened, Ben could see his boss was a bit surprised to see him. "Ah, Ben, I've been wanting to speak with you," he said a bit hesitantly. "Have you checked the footage?" Ben asked hopefully. "Ah, yes," his boss began. "What is it?" Ben asked worriedly. "I'm sorry, but I have to let you go," his boss eventually said. Ben was stunned. "What do you mean?" he asked, taken aback. "You have until tomorrow to get your things," his boss said. It felt like being punched in the stomach. Ben stood in silence, trying to comprehend what had just happened. "I'm fired," he eventually managed to say. "I'm not going anywhere until you explain," he said, his voice steady, but his heart racing. His boss, caught off guard, hesitated but stood firm. "Ben, you need to leave now," he said, his voice betraying a hint of regret. But Ben wasn't moving. This wasn't just about his job, it was about the animals he loved. "Why am I being fired?" Ben pressed, his voice rising in frustration. His boss looked away, avoiding eye contact. "I can't discuss it, Ben." The standoff was broken when his boss picked up the phone and called security. Within minutes, a security guard entered, a look of surprise on his face upon seeing who he was supposed to escort out. "Ben, let's go," the guard said, his voice sympathetic but firm. Ben glanced once more at his boss, hoping for a last-minute reprieve, but there was none. It was time to go. As Ben cleared out his locker, the security guard watched in silence. "Tell him he's making a big mistake," Ben said, handing over his zookeeper uniform. The guard nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. Walking out of the zoo gates, Ben looked back at the enclosures, his determination hardening as he walked away. Ben was already plotting his next move. He wasn't going to give up without a fight. This story was far from over. That evening, Ben sat on his couch, racking his brain for ways to reclaim his job. He needed something solid, irrefutable. Throughout the night, Ben sketched out a bold strategy. The plan was to catch the real cause of the baby seal's distress on camera. At dawn, Ben headed back to the zoo, hoping to slip in unnoticed. He swiped his key card at the gate, but it was denied, leaving him frustrated and stuck. Just then, Chloe appeared, asking why he was there. Ben quickly made up an excuse about forgetting things at his desk. Convinced, Chloe let him in, but Ben needed to get rid of her. He claimed he needed to use the bathroom and dashed off, hiding inside to wait. At 10, when the zoo quieted for his boss's meeting, Ben made his way to the office. Finding the door locked, he panicked until his boss returned, grabbed some papers, and left without locking the door. Ben slipped inside and started searching for anything that could clear his name and reveal the truth. Ben quickly stumbled upon a video file labeled March, classified CCTV footage, seal enclosure. His pulse quickened as he clicked on the file. Ben hit play on the video, keeping the sound off to avoid drawing attention. As the footage rolled, his eyes widened in disbelief. Ben knew he needed to share this with his colleagues somehow. With the coast clear, Ben stepped out, the recorded conversation heavy on his mind. As Ben navigated the now familiar corridors of the zoo, his mind raced with the implications of his discovery. Suddenly, a voice cut through his thoughts. The dim light revealed it was Chloe, her face etched with seriousness and concern. Inside the cramped space, Chloe looked Ben straight in the eyes. "I know why you're really here, Ben," she said, her voice steady. Chloe listened intently, her resolve hardening as Ben's story unfolded. After hearing Ben's story, Chloe's expression softened into one of determination. "I want to help," she said without hesitation. Together, in hushed tones, they began to craft a plan, a way to expose the truth without causing unnecessary harm to the zoo or the animals they both cherished. With a plan in place, Ben left the zoo, his spirits lifted slightly by Chloe's commitment to their cause. Back at the zoo, Chloe received Ben's email containing both the video of the seal enclosure and the audio recording of their boss's incriminating conversation. With a deep breath, she forwarded the email to all their colleagues, excluding their boss. It was a bold move, one that could change everything. As Chloe observed the ripple effect of the email through the workspace, she could barely contain her anticipation. Colleagues huddled in small groups, their expressions a mix of shock and resolve. Soon, Chloe's desk became the epicenter of an impromptu meeting. Colleagues bombarded her with questions, their voices a blend of curiosity and outrage. The sudden appearance of their boss passing by sent a wave of silence across the room, eyes darting towards him, laden with unspoken accusations and anger. The boss, puzzled by the cold reception, hurried into his office, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. As expected, the call came. "Chloe, he wants to see you in his office," related a colleague, a mix of concern and anticipation in their eyes. With a deep breath, Chloe walked towards the office, ready to unveil the truth. In the quiet of the office, Chloe played the footage for her boss, showing him clearly upsetting the baby seal by kicking its food away and throwing its play ball out of reach. His actions on the screen spoke louder than any words could. The boss watched, his face a mask of surprise and discomfort as his casual cruelty was laid bare for both of them to see. Caught in the act, the boss scrambled for an explanation. "I was just playing," he stammered, attempting to brush off his actions as harmless fun. Without missing a beat, Chloe played the audio recording of his phone conversation discussing plans to silence Ben. The evidence was undeniable. He had been caught, exposed for all he was, and there was no way out. In that moment, he knew everything he had built was crumbling around him. Chloe, standing firm, laid out her terms. "The footage gets deleted. You rehire Ben, and you resign immediately afterward," she stated, her voice steady and uncompromising. Chloe gave their boss a clear choice: step down or face public exposure. With no room for negotiation, he resigned, shocking the entire staff. By the week's end, his departure was announced, bringing relief and a sense of closure to the zoo. Ben was quickly reinstated, greeted warmly by his colleagues. His return brought joy not just to the staff but also to the baby seal, whose spirits noticeably lifted. The new boss, a warm and forward-thinking leader, inspired confidence. Her vision revitalized the zoo, promising a brighter future for everyone involved.